Hello and welcome to another Toon Talks with Jeanné, a conversation with music attorney Cassandra Spangler. This time our topics are books to help your music career, changes in the music industry, and things to consider when making a cover song. Each topic is presented in its own separate video, and this video will cover topic number 3, things to consider when making a cover song. The information provided in this video is for informational purposes only and not for the purpose of providing legal advice. You should contact an attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular issue or problem. It's the holiday season, and of course, people are doing lots of holiday music, and there's a lot out there, and there's some really awesome songs, and so people are making covers. This is the time of year for that, I guess. And I would say that if you've made a holiday song or a cover, you probably should have released it by now. But for, the future, what do people need to consider when making a cover song?
Yeah, so cover songs, the good news is there's something that is written into the copyright law called a compulsory license, which basically means if you want to create a cover version of someone else's song, they can't tell you no, basically. So you just have to get what they call a compulsory license. Usually you would do that through the Harry Fox agency. They handle most everything in the United States. And you just purchase the license, you let them know how many copies you're planning to sell, and then they will pay the mechanical royalties to the writers of the song. And it's really a pretty simple process as long as you're not looking to change the original, because if you start changing the original song, now you have to go directly to the publisher and you have to negotiate a license and they can say no. So it gets a lot more complicated. But if you just want to do a strict cover version of something that has already been released, then it's a pretty easy process. And it's actually even easier nowadays if you're releasing it streaming only. The streaming services actually handle those mechanical licenses. So if you just want to release it for streaming, you don't want to have any CDs printed, you don't want to do it on iTunes where people are downloading it, then you would just basically let if you're using TuneCore or DistroKid, you would put in the writer information, and then Spotify and Apple Music will take care of paying those mechanical royalties. So, that's the good news. It's a pretty easy process to do a cover song, and if it's an old enough song, if it's something that is no longer protected by copyright, which varies. I mean, kind of a rule of thumb is 100 years after the author's death. So whoever wrote the original song, if they died more than 100 years ago, 9 times out of 10, it's no longer protected by copyright. Not always the case, though, so you would want to check that out or check with an attorney. But assuming that it is something that's old enough that is no longer protected by copyright, then you don't even really need to go through that process. The only few things I would caution people to keep in mind, one is when you're doing a cover song, since you didn't write it, you're not going to be getting any publishing income. So when you write a song, as I think Jeanné and I have talked about in one or more previous Tune Talks, if you write a song and then you release your recording of that song, you're going to get income both from the recording as well as on the publishing side as the writer. If you're doing a cover song, you're not the writer, so you're not getting any money on the publishing side. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing, which I find comes up a lot lately, people do video versions of their cover song. So the compulsory license that I spoke about, where they don't have to approve it or disapprove it, it's just automatic. You pay the licensing fee and then it's granted. That doesn't cover videos. So if you want to create a video of yourself playing a cover song, then you have to get an additional license, which is a sync license, to give you the ability to create that video with the music. And that gets a little more complicated because, again, if you want to put it with video, you have to go to the publisher of the original song and you have to request a license, and then they review it and they say yes or no. If they say yes, they'll dictate the terms of how much they want to charge you for the sync license. So, that comes up a lot because there are a lot of people who want to do cover songs, holiday songs, and create a video and put it on YouTube. And unfortunately, you would need to get a sync license to do that. So if you just want to do audio only, just release it on streaming. It's a very easy process as long as you're not changing the original song. But if you want to change it or you want to put it with video, now you get a little more complicated and you have to negotiate directly with the publisher, and then they will be the ones to set the terms.
So you mentioned, TuneCore, DistroKid, and CD Baby. Let's say you're doing a cover song and you release it through, say, CD Baby. Now, they automatically put it on YouTube for you. And if you don't create your own video, it is simply, your cover art. That does not constitute a video, does it?
Technically, it could.
Oh.
I mean, probably you're not going to run into any issues, but it technically could if there's any visuals with it, or sometimes people do the lyric videos. So that could technically qualify as a video requiring a sync license. So what you would probably want to do is opt out. So if you're using TuneCore, CD Baby, whichever one you're using, you would probably want to opt out. Although it gets even a little more complicated because YouTube does have blanket licenses with some music publishers. So there are some music publishers where YouTube has negotiated with them to allow people to do cover versions and put them on YouTube. And then YouTube will just direct a portion of the money to the publisher. However, it's only some publishers and they don't have any kind of database yet, where you can search and see, is this covered by a YouTube license or not? So it can get a little tricky. If you go ahead and do it anyway, there's kind of a few different things that could happen. One of the most common things is whoever owns the original song will just claim your ad revenue, so that, whatever money you're generating through ads on YouTube will just be directed to the publisher, which in a way is not the worst thing for anybody because the publisher is getting paid. You're still able to keep your video up. So but if they really want to get stricter about it, they could flag it for copyright claims and these kinds of things. Overall message is be careful if you're creating a video of a cover song because it can get a little trickier than just doing an audio only recording of it.
Aha. And yet, one more reason to consult a lawyer before you do these things. Okay. That is interesting. I actually I did not even think about the fact that the doing a video would make a difference. And we've had these talks I don't know how many times, and yet I still didn't think about it.
It's a common, I mean, it comes up all the time. I would say people generally are more interested in doing video covers than audio. And you'll see it a lot too, especially if whatever song is like the number one hit of the time, you'll see all these YouTube covers, and that's people trying to, hoping to cash in on the popularity of the song. But yeah, it comes up all the time.
Anything else on any more sage advice on doing a cover?
I think that's about it. Just, again, if you want to do audio only, that's built into the copyright law. Easy, simple process. Even easier if it's only streaming. If you want to do videos or you want to make a remix or you want to change some of the lyrics around, then you have to get separate licenses directly from the publisher of the original. If it's old enough, if it's no longer protected by copyright, which means it's gone into what they call the public domain, then you have a lot more freedom what you can do with it, and you don't have to get permission from anyone.
Now, when I asked this question about covers, you brought up a wonderful point, which is, are we talking about music covers or are we talking about actual digital art covers? I, of course, was just talking about music. However, while we're here, we might as well talk about art covers. What do you think?
Yeah. So, you also want to keep in mind a lot of people forget about this step of the process, but you need to get permission from whoever created your cover art. So, if it's a, digital artwork and there was a graphic designer who did it, you want to make sure you have a work for hire agreement from the designer stating that you own the copyright in that artwork. If it's a photograph, you want to get the same thing from the photographer. If it's a well-known photographer, a lot of times they won't give up the copyright. They will want to do some kind of a license where, you're paying a licensing fee, they're keeping the copyright in the photo. Sometimes they might want a royalty, depending how well known of a photographer it is. But it is an important step in the process. If you're getting, your album ready or you're getting your single ready to release, you don't want to forget that step, which is making sure you have all the permission for the cover art. A lot of times artists, they just zone in on the music because, that's what they do is create music, and they forget that the cover art also has its own copyright and that they need to make sure that that's all of that paperwork has been taken care of as well.
And I think that some people get a little upset and they go, "Oh my gosh, why do I have to get all these permissions? Why can't I just do this and do that?" But if you think of it as you are an artist, would you want somebody to just say, "Take your song," and do whatever they wanted to do with it? I don't think so.
When you write the song, record the song, create the cover art, you're not giving away any portion of it to anyone else. So all the better.
As usual, I thank you so much for your time, Cassandra. I know you are so busy, and everybody seems to want a piece of you. But I totally appreciate that. Whenever I come to you and say, "Hey, let's let's do another talk," you're always willing to do it. I totally appreciate it, and I know the listeners appreciate it too, because you give them things to think about that they just didn't think about before. I know that happens with me as we're talking, and you're my lawyer.
Yes, thank you. I always appreciate you asking me to come on, and it's always, you come up with great topics and things that are relevant to whatever's going on in the world. So always a pleasure.
So again, we are speaking to Cassandra Spangler. Cassandra, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you because they need a super duper lawyer like I have.
Sure. Yep. The best way, if you go to my website, it's cspanglermusiclaw.com. That has all my contact information, email address, phone number. So that's the best place to go. You can also find me on social media. Instagram is cspanesq, Twitter, C-SPAN Music Law, and Facebook is facebook.com/music attorney. So all of those places, great way to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to hear from everybody.
Well, thank you again for telling everybody what they need to be aware of in this crazy industry we call music and entertainment.
Great speaking with you, Jeanné, and everyone else. Happy holidays, and we will talk to you next year.
This has been a Tune Talks with Jeanné conversation with music attorney Cassandra Spangler. If you would like to contact Cassandra, visit her website at cspanglermusiclaw.com. If you would like to hear more of our conversations, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be notified when a new video is uploaded. And don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful.